Welcome to this week's question. Now, we've seen a lot of bad press out there about startups moving to manager mode. So this week's question is, why do startups move from founder mode to manager mode? The answer lies in the fact that they don't mean to. They just fall into this default organization structure. This leads to functional silos with top-down budgets and KPIs. And as Bjartes Bogsnes says, it's really challenging to remove stupid stuff. Let's start with quoting Paul Graham from his paper, Founder Mode. Now, what Graham says is there are people out there telling these founders they need to run their companies like a manager. People like VCs that actually have never been founders themselves and don't know how to run a company. Or these C-level execs that, quoting Graham here, as a class, includes some of the most skillful liars in the world. However, there are far too many founders out there listening to what is called this common wisdom. This common wisdom which is far too common and far too ill-informed. Now, the term founder mode came from a speech by Brian Chesky, CEO and co-founder of Airbnb. And Chesky found that manager's mode just doesn't work. Airbnb are not alone. There are many, many startups out there that have found themselves now in manager mode. So how did they get there and why did they get there? Let's explain. We'll start with our founder, and she has a great idea. She recruits a bunch of like-minded people and they start working on this in their proverbial garage. Angel funding allows her to expand the team. A Series A round makes them grow even further. Suddenly she finds she's got 64 direct reports across different functions. It's time to put in structure. But what structure should we put in place? Let's think about this for a while. If you had 64 direct reports across different functions, what structure would you put in place? Would it look something like this? And if it does, welcome to the start of manager mode. Now, as the company grows even further, the functional silos solidify. We add in top-down annual budgeting process. This leads to top-down KPIs because we want to make sure we deliver on the promises we made to get that funding down the budget process. We now have dependencies across the functions which now come into conflict with the KPIs and the budgets. Decision making becomes difficult and slows down as the prisoner's dilemma kicks in. To get a decision made across functions, what we find is we now have to start escalating. And in the example that we've got here, we can actually count 9 internal meetings to make one decision. The 3 meetings that are the cross-functional meetings and the 6 management briefings so that the managers are fully prepared when they go into the internal debate. Ultimately, we reach what we call the decision equilibrium point. That is the decision level where to go any further just makes everyone look stupid. Therefore, a compromise is reached and everyone goes back all unhappy. Meanwhile, our CEO is completely unaware any of this happened. Then, to get ahead of this prisoner's dilemma problem, each department starts implementing their own manual processes for resource requests, workload management, approvals, sign-offs. Suddenly, our organisation's being run by Word documents and Excel spreadsheets. Functions next, slowed by these dependencies, start building out their own teams. And as Chesky says, they move into becoming their own divisions. We are now fully entrenched in manager mode. Does this look like your organisation today? Have you ever tried to remove stupid stuff? Okay, so what did Chesky do? Well, his key piece of advice is to try and to get everyone to row together in the same direction. During the pandemic, and they downsized, this allowed him to break up those divisional fiefdoms. He went back to functional mode. He ensured that the managers running those functions were experts in the functions. And then he set up a schedule of CEO review meetings so he could coordinate the work across the organisation. Meetings every week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, etc. Now, in one of these meetings, if he saw something wrong or there was a problem, he'd stop the meeting until they resolved the problem. He absolutely went back to founder mode, which was based on skills and coordination. But is this sustainable? Is this scalable? What happens when we launch our rowboat into the complexity of our marketplace? As we said in last week's question, there is a third mode, which is leader mode. Okay, let's recap. Why do startups go from founder mode into manager mode? Well, they don't mean to. They fall into a default organisation structure. This leads to functional silos, top-down budgets, and top-down KPIs. And as Bjartes Bogsnes says, it's really challenging to remove stupid stuff. Have you ever tried? Thank you for listening. You can find more about our research on our YouTube channel, Unlocking Change. We also put up there all of our weekly questions, so please subscribe so you'll be notified of the next week's question. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your comments. Put them in the comments section below and hope to see you next week.